Hey, everybody, it's Jimmy Allen here with the Roll Jays podcast brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing. This week's show is a great lineup. Derek Kellogg joins us for the third time to give us an insight on exactly what it's like to be the newest Creighton assistant coach, what settling into Omaha looks like, and how life on the road recruiting and going to camps have been this fall. Also, Ravi Lulla from Hurrdat Sports, big new venture going on in his life. He joins us to talk about that level of excitement and what's all new over at Hurrdat and what's new with him and his life as well. We hope you enjoy the show. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube. Give us a follow. Give us a thumbs up as well if you love all of our Jays content. Got some exciting news coming in the next couple of weeks here. There may be an addition or two to the show. We're going to change it up a little bit as we get closer to the season. We're going to start giving you insight into what's going on in the Big East and start talking to people outside of the Creighton program to find out exactly what this offseason has looked like outside of Omaha, outside of the confines of the CHI Health Center as well. We hope you're enjoying the show. This is episode number 12. We're on 12 episodes of the Roll Jays podcast brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing. If you'd enjoyed it, please go follow us on Twitter as well at Roll Jays podcast as well. Hope you enjoy the show. Ravi Lulla, Derek Kellogg, all coming up next when Alex Drake joins me when we come back on the Roll Jays podcast brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing.
Do you need a customized online marketing plan and creative campaigns to help scale your business and achieve goals in 2023? Pixel Fire Marketing can not only help you achieve those goals, but we will help you crush them this year. Pixel Fire Marketing lives and breathes digital marketing. Pixel Fire Marketing has experts in strategic content creation, social media marketing, and website development. Check out Pixel Fire Marketing today and attack marketing in 2023.
Welcome back to the Roll Jays podcast brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing. We're joined again by Creighton assistant coach Derek Kellogg. Coach, thank you very much for your time at the tail end of a summer here. You guys are back from the Bahamas. What is the next page for Creighton basketball? Where do we turn to now?
Well, the Bahamas was fantastic. I mean, I think all the reports came back. We had great team bonding. It was great for me as kind of a newer assistant to get to know the kids on a more personal level. And, September 26th, we can start the actual team practices, get ready for the season. So until then, a lot of individual work, a lot of strength training, and just maintaining kind of the all the good stuff we had going through the summer.
Coach, how do those 10 practices before the trip differ from the official practices starting later next month?
Well, I think Coach was very particular in what he wanted to do with the guys in those 10 practices. With how long the seasons are nowadays and how late they played into the the NCAA tournament last year, he felt like it'd be best to kind of have them not feel like actual real practices in September, October, November, and do more individual work, do a lot of team building and bonding. We did a lot of offense, and the practices were spread out through the summer, so it didn't feel like the season was 13 months long. So I thought that was a great way for him to kind of segue the new guys into the returners to where they kind of know what we're trying to do without, I guess, physically beating them up over the summer.
We know those starting lineups that we saw in the Bahamas had nothing to do with what we're going to see come the winter time. Who do you think got the most value out of the starts they saw in the Bahamas?
Well, I think a guy like Mason Miller, it's important for him to feel where he fits in. Stephen Ashworth, kind of guys like that. And, Coach wanted to try a bunch of different lineups with I feel like the guys that had already proven themselves here at Creighton and give everybody an opportunity to play with those guys and see who fits best. Jason Green and Isaac Trout and some of those guys got some minutes at the 4 spot. And then a lot of the younger players got an opportunity to see the different levels of how competitive it is at the major college basketball level. So I thought it was good for the team in general, but specifically some of the younger guys and newer guys to see the level that the older guys play at.
Was there anything that surprised you on the trip about how the team played? Maybe not anybody individually, but just something that maybe we were farther along or a little farther behind than you expected?
That's tough to say just because of the level of competition down there. The team from Lithuania was probably the most prepared and actually played like a college basketball team. So that was a good game to see. And to watch, it's always nice to watch the guys that are supposed to take over take over and the game's on the line or when they're supposed to make plays. I like that at a few different junctures when kind of the starter five or your top seven or whatever were in the game, they were able to kind of gear it up and show defensively, why they're thought of so highly. And then on the offensive end of the floor, they really share the basketball, know how to play. So it was a good learning curve for me to see those guys in action and kind of understand why they're so valuable on the floor.
When we talked to Jalen Courtney Williams and Steve Murfeld and Jeff Vanderloo, we could kind of see their fingerprints somewhat all over this team. When we see this team on the court against Iowa in a few months, what do you think Derek Kellogg's fingerprints on this team are going to look like?
That's an interesting question. I'm hoping that it's more victories and continue to kind of move ahead. I've always coached a little differently. I've pressed a little bit more and played a little bit differently on the offensive, more on the defensive end of the floor. So maybe there'll be a few possessions a game that some of the things I've done in the past can be beneficial and steal one or two possessions a game. And, with as many close games as these guys have had over the past few years, if, I can be beneficial to help an OB under defensive player, offensive player, special time and special situations to, throw a little bit of knowledge I've had over the years. I'm hoping that would be something that can get us a victory or two throughout the season.
Is there anything up until this point that you've been asked to do that may have been a little different than you thought when you first came in?
Not really. I mean, coach has put me on the spot a few times in practice.
He's not afraid to do that, by the way.
Nah, I just said, yeah, put that press in there. Let's take a look at this. And I'm prepared for it. It's back here. Just you had to bring it to the front of the mind in about a 10-second. And the great coaches always challenge their assistants. When I was with Coach Cal at Memphis or Jim Larinaga or Frank, and I think Coach does the same. He's trying to prepare everybody to get yourself ready for those situations where in practice he'll give you the board to drop an out of bounds under play, or he'll give each guy an opportunity to coach one of the teams. So I think he keeps everybody sharp and on the same page of understanding what we're trying to do.
Coach, Jimmy asked me this question, I think it was last week, and I'm going to turn it on to you. You guys are getting to the point where you're going to have a closed-door scrimmage coming up with another Power 6 program. The question is, do you get more out of that or out of maybe some of those exhibition games or lesser opponents early?
I totally believe the closed practices you get so much out of because it gives you a chance to get a video and analyze some of the things that work and maybe don't work that you thought were gonna. I think if it's a coach that you're on the same page with, you can put in some special situations and circumstances and go against somebody that might be prepared for it. And then a lot of times there'll be a certain segment where maybe they'll do something that you're not prepared for, whether it's a press, a different type of zone, a box and one. So I feel like those are of the utmost importance. And the biggest thing you get from it is the video where you can break down and say, wow, I thought that particular possession or play, we would get a lob out of that or an open three. Why didn't that happen? Or defensively, you can try some different stuff. So those are the utmost importance early on in the beginning of the season.
Great assistant coach Derek Kellogg joins us here on the Roll Jays podcast. Had a really good conversation last night with Creighton Athletic Director Marcus Blossom, and we asked him what events on the calendar does he circle that he's most excited for. Have you had a chance to look ahead to this schedule and say, okay, I mean, obviously Alabama's on the schedule, you play Iowa, the whole Big East slate. Have you looked at the schedule at all and thought ahead that far, or are you just ingrained in August right now and worried about what's happening tomorrow?
I live day to day for the most part, but every normal person has to every once in a while look in the rearview mirror just to see where you've been and what you've done and where you've come from so you can improve. And then it's human nature to kind of look ahead down the line. And for me, hearing what an amazing place this is and the fan support, and it's really the first home game we play and walking through that tunnel and popping out in front of 17,000 something fans and kind of getting that energy and vibe is something that I'm really looking forward to. I think it's going to be a special day for me just as a coach and a person who is looking forward to seeing that.
Staying on the same track of looking ahead a little bit, you've been at a lot of places. In December, we got a in-state rivalry, looking for revenge. As a new coach and a new staff, whether it's here at Creighton or anywhere else you've been, how hard or easy is it for you guys as a staff and even the players to immediately understand the intensity of a rivalry?
I think me living here in a short amount of time, I didn't kind of understand how close the proximity between Lincoln and Omaha was, and kind of the deep-rooted battles, I guess, that have transpired over the years. And
are we allowed to say the name of the city? I didn't know if we were allowed to do that or not.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not really up on all that stuff quite yet.
So he's not all the way in, is what he's
saying.
saying.
No, not it. I'm still working on it, but I just feel like it's good for college basketball. It's good
Absolutely.
for the state. It's good for the area, and I feel like as many good local rivalries that you can have in big games, it's just good for basketball and some other sports. So I'm excited for it. I'm excited for the schedule. And, as much as I'm looking forward to some of those games, for me to go back and play, at UConn, at Providence, go to Marquette, see St. John's and step into MSG for the Big East tournament, I think those are just special games for our program.
You mentioned walking into the CHI Center for the first time. Have you had a chance to step inside of that building yet? Or is that something that you guys are waiting to get until you get closer to the season?
No, I've gone through there. We'll take recruits through there at different times. I've gone through and checked it out. I mean, it's an awesome facility, and you just can't envision it. But you can envision it, but you really don't get that feeling until the people are actually in there. That's really what makes an arena. I've been in some beautiful places and some not so whatever. But for instance, there's some arenas that are a little older in the Atlantic 10, but they pack the place and they have a great crowd, and it makes those places really hard to play in some of the better venues in that league. So, but we got a great locker room set up. It looks like there's some great stuff for the fans to do. So it should be an interesting and great environment.
Before we get you out of here, obviously we kind of grabbed you as soon as you got the job here. You hadn't had a chance to quite settle into Omaha yet. How settled in are you at this point, or is it still a work in process?
No, it's work in progress. I'm getting more settled. This is the first time we've spoken, and I haven't been in a car or traveling somewhere. Yeah. So that's been kind of nice. A couple weeks at home here in Omaha, and when I've been able to spend a little time getting acclimated to the city. And it's been good. I've still been able to travel back and forth to Massachusetts some. But Omaha's home now, and it's been good to spend a couple weeks here without recruiting or, as much as the Bahamas is one of the greatest places. We had a great time. It's nice to get home and get settled and start working with the guys and get ready for the season.
What's the go-to dinner spot in Omaha that you guys have discovered so far?
I've been everywhere. been everywhere. So I'm enjoying checking out the restaurant scene and getting involved.
Just make sure you get a couple laps in with the guys at practice. You start looking like me and Alex. Coach, we appreciate your time. We'll catch up with you when we get closer to the season.
All right, fellas. Thank you so much.
It's great assistant coach Derek Kellogg. We'll be right back, putting a bow on the show and tell you what's coming up next here on the Roll Jays podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing.
Do you need a customized online marketing plan and creative campaigns to help scale your business and achieve goals in 2023? Pixel Fire Marketing can not only help you achieve those goals, but we will help you crush them this year. Pixel Fire Marketing lives and breathes digital marketing. Pixel Fire Marketing has experts in strategic content creation, social media marketing, and website development. Check out Pixel Fire Marketing today and attack marketing in 2023.
Welcome back into the Roll Jays podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing. We've got a congratulations in order to our next guest. Ravi Lulla from Lulla and Benning in the Morning joins us from 590 and Herd Sports. Ravi, welcome in, and congratulations on the big news this week, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's been a long process, but we got it done, and I'm super excited.
I kind of feel like I was in the boat and living through you vicariously throughout this whole thing. So, and I appreciate all the hard work you've done and the stuff we've obviously done together. As far as that show, what's the goal long term for you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's just everybody at Hurrdat says this, but like, we just want to make cool stuff. Like, we just want to have a good time talking about the things that we really care about. And Damon and I have like a really unique chemistry in both the way we think about things and the overlap and things we care about. And so I'm really excited for it, just because Damon and I have gotten along really well for a long time, and
Ravi just died.
My phone fell down on me there. I'm still here, but the phone kind of had a little challenge there. I had it little kind of jerry rigged up there, and it didn't like it. The goal honestly is just to have a good time talking about things we care about. And I think when you do that, regardless of, a lot of times listeners don't necessarily, maybe they don't care about how or whatever, but they pick up on the passion, right? And when you're energetic and care about things, people want to listen to that, whether they thought they cared about it or not. It turns into something that is good content and good radio. So that's the goal, just to have a good time talking about stuff that we really like.
Yeah, and I think you guys both do a great job of breaking down different aspects of whatever you're talking about. Like, Ravi, we've known each other for a while, and I've followed you and some of the different things you've done for a while. Like, I remember when the Warriors started to get really good and the way you would break down things on Facebook from a film aspect. That's a lot of like how I look at the game for basketball, and that was always enjoyable for me. But then, when you started doing some of the football stuff, the way you talked about the strength and conditioning, which is way outside of my realm, I've always really appreciated the way you break down things with different nuance. You do a great job of dumbing it down to people who might not get it, but also keeping it interesting enough for those of us who do get whatever you're talking about. I think that's a super difficult art in terms of like on the basketball side, like being able to break it down for casuals or people that don't have the experience that we might have around that game, but also being detail oriented enough that a junkie like me is also engaged.
Yeah, it's, and I really appreciate that, because that's really what I strive for, is to, take concepts that can be pretty complex sometimes and get them kind of digestible for everybody, right? And that can be really challenging, but also, it's really different too, because kind of the acumen I have in baseball is the acumen not in baseball, basketball is the acumen that Damon has in football, right? And so I look at football in a totally different way than Damon does, and Damon looks at basketball in a totally different way than I do, but we both bring something to the table on both of those. And so I think it's going to be really good. I'm super excited to be going through football season with him. Like, it's a great time to start a show.
Right, yeah, hey. No better time than August 29th.
Right, with Damon betting especially. And so I'm really excited. We've done a bunch of we started doing podcasts together a couple months ago, and that's been really great. And I think you can hear kind of our approach to things within that, and I think people are really going to like it. I'm super excited about it.
All right, this is the last thing we're going to do, breaking our arm, patting you on the back right here. But we got to Alex brought up the weightlifting portion of what's the bench at these days?
Yeah, so I actually don't really lift anymore. When I started having the things with my eyes, powerlifting has this effect where it briefly spikes your blood pressure really high.
It does.
while you're
really
while you're executing a heavy lift. That's why you see guys sometimes they'll deadlift and their nose will start to bleed or whatever. It's because their blood pressure briefly spikes very high. Turns out that's very bad for the blood vessels in your eyes, which was what was causing me some issues with my retinas detaching. So I don't bench anymore. Honestly, I just play a boatload of pickleball is pretty much all I do now.
Hey, that's still cardio, man. That's still cardio.
It's more cardio than I've gotten since I stopped playing basketball in college. So it's good for me. I do miss benching though. I love benching.
Speaking of
I took that blood pressure thing to my doctor and I said, I can't walk a lot. Blood pressure.
Yeah, that's the reason I don't go to the gym either. So speaking of cardio, the Jays actually got a lot in down in the Bahamas. Obviously, we saw a ton of different rotations in. What did you make of the starting lineups that we got out of the Bahamas? We talked to the coaching staff. There's obviously no weight or merit to it, but which one of those lineups did you like the best that we saw out of the Jays in the Bahamas?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember all the different variations because there was a bunch of them, right?
Right. So you had the original starting three. Obviously, you have Baylor, Trey, Kalkbrenner, and then they threw in Ashworth with Mason Miller. And if we're being honest with ourselves, that's probably what we're going to see come the start of the season as the starting five, in my opinion. Do you think that's the best lineup for the Jays? We'll start there and get your thoughts on that.
I mean, I think it'll either be Miller or I could see it being Trout. I wouldn't be surprised if Trout was in there instead of Miller. I think they're kind of interchangeable. Yes, they bring different things to the table, but I don't think it would change that much how the Jays actually play between the two of them. I think that's a great lineup. I think either of them, either Miller or Trout, is a really good lineup. I think with Ashworth in there, with Ashworth, Alexander, and Shireman, the really nice thing is multiple playmakers, right? Multiple guys that can create shots for themselves and for others, which is not something you really had last year because of how ball dominant Ryan Nembhard was. Ryan Nembhard, really talented guy, but I do think he limited how good Shireman and Alexander could be because he needed the ball so often. So I'm actually really excited about those lineups because of that, and because you can get more ball handling out of Shireman and Alexander. Outside of that, I'm really interested to see how Trout and Miller look kind of in that 4 spot, because I don't honestly have a preference right now between the two of them. Miller's obviously got a little bit more actual college playing time, but I maybe like the skill set of Trout a little bit better, I think. It's hard to say, but out of those two guys, like I said, I think they're pretty interchangeable. What I am hoping we see at some point, and I know it's really, you don't want to take Kalkbrenner off the floor, but I would love to see some lineups where you have maybe Trout and Miller, maybe Trout at the 5, Miller at the 4. If you're, if Kalkbrenner gets in foul trouble, or you just want to give him a breather or something, instead of always going to Fred King, I'd like to see a lineup of Trout, Miller, Shireman, Alexander, Ashworth, because God, that would spread you out really, really aggressively as a defense. So
that floor would be spaced out really well.
That's really interesting to me. And that's the thing that I'm still, kind of salivating over the potential of. And that's not to take anything away from Kalkbrenner. Obviously, you want him on the floor as much as possible.
We saw this coaching staff be a little hesitant to do that when you had Christian Bishop, who obviously was saddled more as a 4 when he got to Texas and what he wanted to play more. Do you think they may be more hesitant to do that with this team, or was it just a matter of Ryan Kalkbrenner was so young at that point that they needed that experience out there?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for me with Bishop is that he didn't really stretch the floor. And he was, if you play him at the 4 at Creighton, then you're going to have probably 2 guys that can't really shoot it out there. And I don't love that, right? And neither does Creighton, obviously. And so, to me, that's the big difference between Bishop and these guys. I mean, honestly, I might be underselling Kalkbrenner's shooting ability, too. Like, maybe he's out there stretching the floor. We saw him take a couple in the Bahamas. Honestly, I just want him to take 2 a game. I don't care if they go in. If they go in even at like a 33% clip.
You're Baylor Shireman.
Well, and if you're
doing enough to keep the defense honest.
Yes, honestly, it's the gravity of just pulling guys out there that it's going to open things up for Ashworth and Alexander as in driving lanes, and Shireman in driving lanes, that just the threat of Ryan Kalkbrenner being able to make threes is enough to totally throw a wrench into the defense. So I don't want to make it, because he's got a pretty smooth looking shot. I don't know how often it's going to go in, but it's probably good enough to pull rim protectors away from the hoop, which could be really valuable as well. So I'm just really interested. I'm really excited about the floor spacing ability of this team with a bunch of different lineups, because that's the thing they didn't really have last year, is consistent floor spacing and guys that you really trusted. I mean, maybe Alexander's numbers looked really good, and so he's probably the one guy that game taking a jump shot. Outside of that, I didn't feel great about a ton of guys taking threes last year, even though Shireman's history will tell you he's a really good shooter, and I think he is. Nembhard made some big shots. Farabello struggled to shoot at times, but he's got the history in terms of putting it up at TCU. But this year, you go up and down the lineup, you're like, yeah, there's a lot of guys out there I feel good about taking jump shots.
So I had a conversation with the new WOWT sports director that just moving in from Nashville. He covered a lot of those guys when they were not Nashville, Memphis.
Mhm.
And he said something to me that surprised me off air. Like, Jonathan Lawson didn't really get the opportunity to show himself last year in Memphis, partly because of playing time, but he just wasn't playing his best ball. But said this guy could crack the lineup in terms of being one of the top shooters, and it's something that I feel like we haven't talked about enough. Is that something that you kind of agree with, that he should come along as a much better shooter than what we've given him credit for?
Yeah, I do. I mean, honestly, his numbers are there. It's not on high volume, right? But the numbers are there in terms that would back up that statement. We saw it in the Bahamas. The stroke looks good. He seemed really comfortable, especially in that first game, shooting the ball. It would not surprise me at all if that dude shoots it at like 38% for the year. I'm not saying he's going to, but just based on the ability, that wouldn't surprise me. And I think he's going to be open a lot because he's not going to be the top of any scouting report. It's going to be Trey Alexander. It's going to be Baylor Shireman. It's going to be Ryan Kalkbrenner, right? And so guys like Ashworth and Lawson and Miller and Trout are going to be open a ton. And so Lawson, if he's even a decent shooter, is probably going to put up decent numbers shooting the ball because of just the opportunities, right? And so I feel I would agree with the WWOT sports guy. Like I could easily see Jonathan Lawson not only cracking the lineup, because I think he's going to be a rotation guy for sure. If he shot 38% from three, I would not be shocked even a little bit.
49ers win total set at 12.5, over or under?
Give me the over. Way over.
Lombardi or bust?
Let's go. I mean, Brock Purdy, I'm talking about Tom Brady, Brock Purdy. All right,
2.0.
let's go. No,
Right.
I mean, listen, they've got one of the best rosters in the league. If Purdy is even functional, they've got a really good shot.
All right, buddy, we
Zero
greatly
quarterback
appreciate it.
left.
Yeah, it's
But-
over. Of course it's over. Sam Darnold? It ain't going to be Sam Darnold, that's for sure.
Listen.
James is gone. Garoppolo's gone. You know who the guy is officially.
Sam Darnold, Titletown. Let's do it.
That's Ravi Lulla from Betting and Lulla in the Morning on Herd at Sports. Robbie, we appreciate it. We'll catch up with you in a few weeks.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Take it easy. That was the Roll Jays podcast. We'll be back next week with more live guests talking all things Creighton basketball.